I'm Haley Perot, and this is Northwest Newsweek. The federal government is ready to step in to resolve the Canada Post strike. It was announced Friday that a federal board will now assess the state of negotiations, and employees could be forced back to work. Members of the local union, which represent 260 workers in the region, say they're heartbroken by this development. Jessica Clement reports.
After 4 weeks of picketing, the Canada Post strike could end as early as next week. Labour Minister Steve McKinnon announced on Friday that from his view, Canada Post and the union are at an impasse. It'll now be up to the Canada Industrial Relations Board to review the state of negotiations.
The review could provide the basis of a path forward on how to amend the collective agreements and clarify the structures, rights, and responsibilities of the parties in collective bargaining.
If negotiations are at an impasse, postal workers will be forced back to work, and the terms of existing collective agreements will be extended until May 2025. Local CUPW President Leo Favreau says he's heartbroken and disappointed by the federal government's decision.
In my opinion, we were asking for the respect that we didn't get during COVID. We haven't gotten a real good wage increase for quite a while, and we were hoping for it to keep up with the cost of living and inflation.
The local union represents 260 Canada Post employees in northwestern Ontario, and members were still out on Friday to picket. Favreau notes his next steps include getting in touch with regional and national union members.
Basically, we follow the government's orders and go back, but I'm truly afraid that when we do go back, morale is going to be extremely low. Christmas time is one of our favorite times of the year. It's just fun. And we're going to have a lot of people very disappointed at Christmas time.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
The chief of Neskantaga First Nation got a chance to question Prime Minister Justin Trudeau earlier this month about the long-standing boil water advisory in his community. Chief Chris Munias says they're now at 29 years and counting without safe drinking water. Jonathan Wilson reports.
We need to improve our quality of life for our people.
Chris Munias made the most of his opportunity to ask Justin Trudeau face-to-face about the lack of clean drinking water in his remote First Nation of Neskantaga. The exchange happened at the Assembly of First Nations conference in Ottawa, and Munias didn't hold back with his frustration about the boil water advisory that has remained in place since 1995. 2018,
you stood here promising us that we're going to get clean drinking water. It's already 2024. We're on 10,900 days. That's 29 years, 10 months, and 4 days of our boil water advisory. The longest in Canada. We're the poster boys and people of long-term drinking water. We don't see an end in sight.
The Prime Minister did not respond to the question about Neskantaga directly, leaving that for Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu. Instead, Trudeau focused on his government's track record overall with boil water advisories in First Nations.
There is a lot of work to do. We recognize that. On boil water advisories, when we came into office, there were 109 boil water advisories, in long-term boil water advisories across the country. We lifted 140 or so. We have stopped lots of short-term advisories from becoming long-term advisories, and on the 30 or so left, there is a plan and funding for all of them.
It's super disappointing to me that the plant that was installed not even a decade ago doesn't deliver clean water. And you know we have an engineering firm working with your community. You are directing that work, but they've identified deficiencies. We've committed to ensuring all of those deficiencies are rectified. And I wrote you a letter, as you know, to commit to the design of a new plant. And I understand that testing is underway right now. Furthermore, we'll be there for Neskantaga. I have committed to you that we'll keep meeting for as long as it takes to get the long-term boil water advisory lifted. And that is my word, and I have lived up to my word ever since we've known each other.
The water treatment plant in Neskantaga has had numerous issues with it since it was built by a private contractor around 10 years ago. Several attempts have been made to rectify the problems, but none have passed the test, according to Munias.
We were trying to upgrade our water plant. It hasn't been working at all. It's been a total failure.
Hajdu issued a warning to all private contractors awarded contracts for new water plants on First Nations.
to all contractors, many who lobby me every single day, were watching. Because it's unacceptable that Neskantaga got ripped off, and we will continue to make sure that that does not happen ever again.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
A big announcement this week for the Anishinaabe-Aski Police Service. NAPS will be the first legislated Indigenous police service in Ontario. Past and current leaders of Anishinaabe-Aski Nation joined with the provincial representatives in Toronto on Tuesday to officially opt in to the Community Safety and Policing Act. NAPS is currently funded by tripartite agreements with the province and Canada through the First Nations and Inuit Policing Program. NAN has said that program uses unfair terms and conditions to restrict the level of policing that NAPS offers communities. Tuesday's official signing includes a $514 million investment into the Anishinaabe-Aski Police Services Board. That funding will allow NAPS to double the number of officers serving its 34 First Nations. Solicitor General Michael Kersner says it was a historic day for policing in the North.
This is the first time ever that a First Nations police service has opted into provincial policing legislation. This means that the 34 First Nations communities that are served and protected every day by NAPS, including the 25 remote and northern First Nations, from the Manitoba border up to the James Bay coast, over to the Quebec border, have opted in to the provincial policing legislative framework.
And we call on Canada as well to remain at the table, to ensure that the vision that Bentley, former Grand Chief Bentley Chicho, and our other leaders had when they created this organization is fulfilled. And that's to ensure that every family in the Anishinaabe Nation lives in a safe home.
NAPS will benefit from the same standards as municipal police services in Ontario and receive the proper funding that is required to meet those standards. One person is dead after a shooting at a Wawa business Friday morning, and another person has been taken to hospital with serious injuries. The deceased, who's actually believed to be the suspect in this incident, was located dead at the scene. Police say there's no threat to the public at this time. Ontario's Health Minister Sylvia Jones paid a visit to the Thunder Bay Regional Hospital this week to announce a new in-hospital emergency mental health and addictions area. The project is intended to provide quicker access to help for those types of emergencies. Justin Hardy has more.
Today's announcement is the first step of many in this exciting project, and I look forward to watching your progress and celebrating each milestone as this project comes to fruition.
The planned Emergency Mental Health and Addictions Assessment and Observation Area at Thunder Bay Regional is aimed at addressing the steady rise in rates of mental health and substance use-related visits. Health Minister Sylvia Jones says it will ensure people across northwestern Ontario have faster access to mental health and addiction support services.
Our government's investment will create a new space designed to provide care in a safe and private setting for parents and their families, with improved space for nursing and physician assessments, enhanced programming and care plan development that puts people at the center.
The new space will be built just off the existing emergency department, which is expected to help speed up triaging of mental health and addictions patients as they come in. Dr. Kyle Lansdale, Chief of Emergency and Trauma Services, says the new space will have a great impact on the capacity of their ER.
This is going to be an expansion of our emergency department. So we're going to be seeing an improved capacity to see mental health and addictions patients without interrupting any of our current operations. And so when these beds are not necessarily being needed for mental health, we'll certainly be able to use them for other presentations as well. And so we think that this will actually improve our capacity in our emergency department overall.
The ministry is working with the hospital to complete early planning and design for the project. A construction schedule and price tag will be confirmed once future planning is complete and the project is tendered and awarded. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
The inquest into the death of a man in an Atikokan holding cell in 2020 has ruled that Aaron Fisk's death was accidental. But the inquest jury notes OPP officers need better training to deal with some medical emergencies. The 37-year-old Fisk died on October 18, 2020, shortly after he fell off the bed in his holding cell, while in OPP custody. Fisk was arrested for breaching the conditions of a release order. He told police he'd been drinking, but a post-mortem found that he had taken fentanyl and methadone. The officers involved were legally cleared of wrongdoing by the SIU, but Thursday, the Inquest jury made 9 recommendations, namely calling for enhanced training for officers when a person collapses in custody, and training on the use of naloxone. They also say all OPP detachments should have first aid kits, AEDs, and naloxone readily available. Representatives from 24 Northern First Nations and other organizations made their way to Thunder Bay this week to celebrate the completion of the Watte power transmission system. The project has been 17 years in the making and wrapped up construction this spring. Justin Hardy has the story.
Celebrating a $1.9 billion transmission project that began in 2007. Groups from around the region got together to recognize the completion of the Watte power transmission system. It stretches along an 800-kilometer arc to communities north of Red Lake and Pickle Lake that previously could only rely on diesel power. Construction of the line was officially completed by Ballard Construction in May. President Kerry Kostick says it was a massive project with quite a few obstacles.
Well, it happened during COVID, and we had this, the significant forest fire for a period in the region. So, large, tough project, but really exciting. We have a great workforce that were committed and dedicated. They worked in tough situations. They worked in isolation, particularly during COVID, and we're very proud of our workforce that got this job done on time.
This is a massive feat of engineering and of tenacity and of hard work from everyone who's participated. You're talking about 1,800 kilometers of line. Every single foot of that connection had to be work that was done, and many of those workers, the 5,000 workers, so many of them were local Indigenous workers who really poured their heart and soul into this project.
The transmission system is majority owned by a partnership of 24 First Nations, including the 17 communities to be connected to the line. Wapakika was one of the last of the communities to celebrate its new connection to the provincial power grid, and community member Zach Tate said it's amazing to have been able to watch the entire process.
When I was young, I heard stories about this project starting up, and they had a lot of options back then, and then finally our First Nations took initiative, and I was very glad that they did, and with the initiatives that they have taken, and with successfully completing the project, this line is very good for us.
All Watte Nikanaya power assets are energized with only a few more communities awaiting full grid connection. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Matawa has received the funds to finish its revitalized training and wellness center. We'll have more on that after the break. Canada Infrastructure Bank and RBC have committed $20 million towards the revitalization of the Matawa Training and Wellness Centre. The project is expected to be completed next spring. Matawa CEO David Paul Achnipaneskam says these funds are much appreciated as work continues on the project.
We had a good start to it right now, but we're still short on in terms of other parts of the building here that we need to renovate. Like one of the things that we really want to have in this is a cultural a room where we have a what we call a roundhouse.
CIB is lending $15 million through its Indigenous Community Infrastructure Initiative, and RBC is lending $5 million to support the project. The facility will address critical infrastructure gaps for Matawa's member communities by centering a number of its services into one location. Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu explains the benefits this brings member communities.
This is a great piece of news for Matawa as they've been building up this learning center and training center to provide support for adults that are wanting to upgrade their skills. I actually walked through a classroom of people just going through driver training on the way to this announcement. So it's anything from some of those basic skills that you need in order to take the next steps in your career and employment journey, but also all the way up to helping people through post-secondary education.
Ignace Town Council has taken another step in preparing to host the planned Deep Geologic Repository for Canada's nuclear waste. At a special meeting on Wednesday, Council appointed 2 people to an implementation committee. Councillor Wayne Minier and CAO Aaron Gullins will represent the Township of Ignace on the panel. They'll be joined by 2 representatives of the Nuclear Waste Management Organization who are expected to be named in 2025. The panel's purpose is to implement the hosting agreement and identify what must be done to keep the process moving along. Council also discussed a community engagement committee relating to the nuclear waste project, but a decision on that was deferred to a future council meeting. Thursday, Confederation College and Orange announced expanding eligibility for the Northern Air Ambulance Award. Together, in agreement with the college, Orange's expanded bursary will help support students looking to study and work in Northern Ontario. Since 2019, more than 65 students have benefited from the annual award, which includes up to 15 entrance grants of at least $1,000 and up to 15 in-program awards of $1,500 each. Now, the bursary will also include programs like the Advanced Care Paramedic Program and nursing programs. Matthew Hill, a first-year student in the Aviation Flight Management Program at Confederation College, received the Orange Northern Air Ambulance Award. He says it's really making him look at local companies like Orange as he plans his future.
It definitely is, yeah. No, it's a super cool company. I would love to fly here. Super cool people. They have cool planes, and I love the just the work and how just like unexpected it is. You get to just fly from here, like from Dryden to just, you don't know where you're going every day, so super cool.
Good, and that's actually the intention of the award. So the intention is to find like Northern Ontario residents, including Indigenous students, that want to learn in the North and stay in the North. So they'll go to, once they're completed their education in Confederation, hopefully they consider a career with Orange so that they can, again, work in Northern Ontario and help support Northern Ontario communities.
Santa Claus and one of his elves made early appearances this week at a number of First Nation communities in Northern Ontario. To give his reindeer a break, Wasaya Airlines once again offered to fly Santa to each of its 12 communities. Justin Hardy has the story.
Merry Christmas! Santa Claus!
This ride has been an endeavor that Wasaya Airways has been helping Santa with for roughly 27 years to reinforce the holiday spirit in remote northern communities. The ride was spread out over 4 days, with Santa and his helpers stopping in 3 communities each day. Santa says there were too many fun and heartwarming moments for him to count, but he does have one that he keeps close to his heart.
One child was maybe about 11. He was standing back watching everybody get pictures, and after everybody was done, he came up and we were getting ready to leave. We thought he'd already had his turn. And he said, if I don't have any parents with me, can I still get a picture with Santa? So we said, of course, yes, definitely. And so that's a very, and he was so patient, so quiet.
Santa's arrival in the communities is a joyous time each year when he delivers bags of goodies to the children, as well as toothbrushes to make sure their teeth stay healthy. Every child along the way got the chance to meet with Santa, like John George Duncan, who's growing up in Fort Severn.
Who's your visitor today?
Santa.
And how are you feeling?
Happy. Because I meet Santa.
They look pretty excited. They were, I have like a bunch of little friends that come to school here and they were happy to see me. And then they were, they were in a good mood. So I'm thinking like the Santa was great.
With his visiting done, Santa has made his way back to the North Pole to prepare for his next ride on Christmas Eve. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Meanwhile, another band of do-gooders joined Santa's Wednesday trip. Corporations for Community Connections, Inc. joined the ride to deliver refurbished laptops to 3 northern communities. Through a 14-year-long partnership with Siemens Energy Canada, Corporations for Community Change has been able to deliver hundreds of refurbished laptops to help ensure that people can access the internet even in the most remote communities. President and CEO Philip Schaus says that keeping the machines from going to waste and helping people connect is the right thing to do.
The world generates e-waste at a rate that equals the Great Wall of China every year. And yet, more than half the population of the world doesn't have access to internet, which in our digital world is really depriving them of the opportunity to get access to opportunities and fulfill their potential.
It was a surprise. Like I don't know anything about the computers, and the staff here in the school, they sure can put good use to them because they're so active with the kids in here. Like I see it.
After the break, we will share how Daliko Anishinaabeg Family Care's annual Christmas Wish campaign was a smashing success.
Oh, we are absolutely thrilled.
Daliko Anishinaabeg Family Care will be able to deliver more than 800 gifts to children and youth across Thunder Bay and District this holiday season, thanks to its annual Christmas Wish campaign. Daliko made the announcement at a media event on Tuesday morning. The hundreds of bags were filled by community members and will be delivered to children across the district, including 13 First Nation communities. Each bag is personalized and filled with items the children wished for, including warm coats, toys, books, or something to fuel their creativity. Over the past 16 years, the Christmas Wish campaign has provided over 9,000 gifts to kids across the region. Dalico's Blythe Haynen says she's always blown away by how much the community gives.
We are absolutely thrilled. It's just so overwhelming to be in a room with this many wishes. We know every one of these bags is for a child that could really use a Christmas wish. We really have to thank the community. They're the ones that step up every year and our sponsors that made this happen. It's because the community shared in the spirit of giving is that we had another successful campaign.
With the help from Knights of Columbus, McKinneku's Children's Fund will be able to distribute over 1,400 coats to remote First Nation communities. The charity recently launched its annual Winter Coat Drive to celebrate its partners and the community impact. This is the second year the charity has partnered with the Knights of Columbus, and they were able to triple what they distributed last year. Over the past week, the coats have been sorted and distributed to more than 30 First Nation communities across northwestern Ontario, including Fort Hope, Pekanjicum, and Slate Falls. McKinneku's board chair, Colleen Martin, says the coats are more than a piece of clothing to the children.
I want you to know what this new coat would mean to a child who's never had a new coat, who receives it for the first time and says, wow, this is my coat. I own this coat. It gives the children a real lift and empowers them that they matter because they got this new coat to them. It was purchased for them.
The great work that Indigenous does in their goal in providing proper clothing and other needs of children in our four Northern Ontario communities, it was just a perfect match for what we do. So we were happy to partner with them and be able to do this.
On Giving Tuesday, McKinneku's was also hoping to raise an additional $10,000 to help address rising costs associated with shipping and distribution to the remote communities. That's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. We'll be back next time with more of the top stories from across the Northwest.